So I'm here to talk about this rapidly growing sector of the NFT market, art made with artificial intelligence and machine learning methods. So I kind of recognize this category has many detractors and is controversial in the NFT world and in the art world at large, but I'm going to try to make a case for it. So I'm Robert Stratton, aka Mad Butter, which is my art name and my social media name. I'm a digital artist and design tech. I co-host a Twitter space every weekday morning at 8 a.m. and I also do a Thursday space in the afternoon. We interview a lot of prominent AI artists. I think it's a great space. If you're interested, follow me or AI Art Today on Twitter and come take a listen. Okay, so I spent the last 3 years taking a deep dive into the NFT world and more recently the AI art world. And so I recognize for the world at large there is a fair amount of hostility to both these technologies. Forgers and scammers, that's me and you. If you can freak some people out by telling them you're into NFTs, just double down and tell them you're also into AI art, and you can imagine the reaction. But with my circle of art techie friends, I think there's been a pretty amazing adoption of both these trends. I think they're both like deep tech rabbit holes that people love diving into who are kind of in my group. There's still some mutual suspicion. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why there's some resistance from the AI people into getting to NFTs. There's this idea that they're kind of a little bit, hard to learn, that all the different blockchains and marketplaces and how to mint smart contracts and all that. There's certainly the other side of NFT culture that some people don't like, the association supposedly like, money laundering and all you hear about scams and rug pulls and things like that, or FTX and whatever it is, degen culture. Some people don't like the shilling and all that. But I get bigger pushback in the other direction, and I'm sure you've all heard this in regards to AI art, that it's stealing, it's copying, it's derivative, it's lazy, there's no intention, the AI does too much of the work of the art production. It doesn't reward mastery, craft, or sort of personal vision. I think there's this other idea that it's harming the livelihood of commercial and fine artists alike, and I think there's some merit to that problem. And I think there's also like an association with the larger field of AI outside of AI art, like AGI, the idea of these large language models kind of becoming a superhuman intelligence that threaten human existence or something like that. All right, but let's push back on this a little bit. Positives. So for the AI people, that the reasons to get an NFT are kind of obvious, I think, for all the reasons that we love NFTs. I think the most important of these are, it's not just about buying and selling, which NFTs does really well. It gives you a worldwide audience. It changes up the relationship between artists and collectors. But this idea, this last line of utilities, social media engagement, the community building around NFTs, I think is fantastic. Okay, but the bigger mission for me here is to sell AI to some of you that might be skeptical about it. I'm going to propose to you that AI is the most important new technology to transform how we make and understand art in our time. And I think it's better to be a part of it than to waste energy trying to fight it. It's a radical a change as photography was in the 19th century. I think there's sort of another example that comes up in our group with like the advent of digital software tools, like things that became Photoshop and all that. I think all these technologies engendered kind of a terrific backlash from artists and critics at the time that felt threatened about it. This is something we forget, that Photoshop was actually controversial at one point. But I think the history of photography is the most important precedent, and we talk about it all the time in the AI art world. This one quote comes up from Baudelaire. I'm sure it's bandied around a lot. He said, "Photography represents the refuge of all failed painters too ill-equipped or too lazy to complete their studies." And that's trotted out as something that could come out of your average AI hater's mouth today. But I think in terms of photography, we've seen 150 years of the evolution of fine art photography, and it's shown us that mastering both sort of the technology of cameras and the equipment, as well as the aesthetics of image making, have created some pretty amazing, incredible work. And that other art media have adapted to the presence of photography just fine and thrive just fine. Maybe altered their course a little bit, but it's been a great thing. So AI is more extreme than photography in its disruption. So with photography, if you have this idea that you want to make a realistic image of a dog, you take this machine, go find a dog, and use the machine to make an image of a dog, and you have a realistic image of a dog. You don't need to learn how to paint or draw anymore, so there's that. But with AI, you don't even have to find the dog, and you can pick any breed. You can show it from any angle, in any environment or context. You can do it in any style, from cartoon to photorealism. Clearly, AI as a sort of technology is a brand new kind of ball game in terms of its power. I think the other issue is that AI, whether you like it or not, is creeping into all our digital tools. For instance, I think the common ones are content-aware fills in Photoshop, upscaling, Topaz Gigapixel, rotoscoping and Runway ML and other tools. The AI way of doing this are clearly better than the traditional ways of doing it. So you're going to see this infiltration whether you like AI or not. But I'm not really talking about those very specific tools. I'm talking about AI art as a category that you'd want to buy and pursue that's named AI. And I'm going to say this is kind of be the next big hype cycle in NFT market, I think and I hope. So you all know this. I'm not going to go through the history of NFTs, but it's been driven by a few big spikes of interest of people onboarded when different styles, particularly things that are natively digital that are hard to sell in traditional art market, have come through to create sort of different trends and different boosts to the market. I think what's different about AI art is that it's sort of a meta medium. You can make AI art in any of those styles because all those styles are what AI models train on. So I think, though, let's say that AI art that tries to pass itself off as any of these things, like tries to pass itself off as photography, is uninteresting to me and borderline unethical. That's kind of where I agree with. But I think that AI art that kind of defies these genres or mashes them up, or at least self-consciously or conceptually calls attention to what AI is doing and how it works, I think that's the art that's really interesting. And as collectors, I would encourage you to look at that art to sort of find the stuff that's a little bit better than the easy, lazy stuff. I'm not going to talk about that because I'm short on time. I'm going to give an example of this in my own art. I made a NFT collection called Unnatural Selections on OpenSea. And with this collection, I started with some of my own photographs, usually sort of close-ups of sort of organic materials like cacti and succulents and barnacles and things like that. I process these photos algorithmically to make thousands of variations from them. I take these thousands of variations and train them for weeks. And then that creates what's called latent space. And I do these animations which are called latent walks through the latent space of the trained AI output. And then after I make these animations, I bring them into After Effects and post-edit them a lot. So this critique, for instance, I think in this case that it's, that AI art is all derivative, lazy, and easy, I think is something that I fought against, because in this case, it's not derivative at all. It's based on my own photographs. It's not lazy. It took months to make these models, or weeks and weeks and months. And it's not easy because you're messing around with some very complicated Python code. So a little pushback on that. But that's clearly not what all AI is like. So I made kind of a list of the AI art tools here from sort of easy to hard. You do have things that are very simple, one-click things on your iPhone. You have Discord servers. You have the web interfaces. Toward the bottom, you get people installing local versions of Stable Diffusion on their hard drives, which is very technical. Automatic 1111 is the preferred tool there. And then you get up to the cloud-based Python notebooks like the one I used. I do think that I would say the majority of AI art that people kind of know is the stuff that's made with the easier tools. And I think a lot of people, amateur artists, people without particular technical skill or art background, are having a lot of fun making stuff, and I'm saying good for you. I think when you get into the NFT collection side of things, you're hopefully looking at people with a little either more technical skill or the ability to I think another important category of people doing really amazing work are people that bring a lot of their art skill from another genre. Let's say they're photographers or illustrators, and they bring that into AI art and bring that sort of art knowledge to make very sophisticated and conceptually consistent bodies of work. I would say this is pretty true for my new favorite genre of AI art that's getting a lot of attention right now, post-photography. Fellowship AI just did an amazing drop. Robert Stratton and 10 other artists who are all photographers who are now making AI art. And I think that's some of the more interesting stuff that kind of demonstrates this idea. They're all photographers who have crossed over to AI, but they're using their long built up ability to like tell stories through photographs, to create moods, to portray complicated emotions, and they know how to control lighting and composition and color in very, very specific ways in their own craft. And these are things that apply really well to making outstanding AI art. So as a collector, I would recommend that you all either look toward thinking about the stuff that involves a little more technical mastery, a little more engagement with the actual tools and the programming underlying it, that's pushing the envelope technically in terms of what can be done with AI, or looking to sophisticated artists who are really taking AI on their own to make incredibly interesting new art. I'm going to jump ahead so I can get to, this was sort of like a series of strategies on how to get there, but I'm going to jump, this is another one of mine, which also shows that you can combine and make complicated work chains out of other kind of art, out of AI art tool chains and combine them. But I want to kind of name check some of the big names in AI art today so that you can do your own research on who the big shots are. Pinder Van Arman trains on his own art, uses GANs and quantum computing. You have Mario Klingemann, who's an incredible artist, and he has this autonomous artist, Bado. You have Rafik Anadol, who's probably the biggest superstar of the AI art world. He's at MoMA now. You can see an extraordinary installation by his in there. I love Sofia Crespo's work. She mixes kind of evolutionary biology with also GAN-based work, so training on her own images. And Gan Brut, also GAN-based. You see he does these richly, incredibly complex sort of illustration style things. On the other side, we have the post-photography group that I told you about that's kind of big right now. Robert Stratton is kind of the new superstar of it. We interviewed him on our show, and he's curating the post-photography perspectives drop that just dropped from Fellowship AI. And here's some of the Fellowship AI artists. I love Charlie Engman's stuff. You can see that this stuff has a particular photographic perspective, but it also is really using the weirdness and strangeness and potential of AI to make particularly sort of weird, creepy work that engages you. So that's all I have to say. I'll take, anyone have any questions for me? I have a minute left.
Do you have a particular style that you favor?
Yeah, and for me personally, I always stayed away from the stuff that looked like it was made straight out of Midjourney. I love Midjourney and to play with it, but I don't take it as seriously as an art tool. For me, the GANs are the most interesting looking stuff, particularly a latent walk and a GAN, which I was saying, I couldn't show you what it looks like really because they didn't let us show video. But there is a sort of a morph quality, an oozing kind of strange, uncanny quality to GAN animations that I particularly love. But I'm also super impressed by this latest development of this post-photography people. I've never seen people use that sort of and some of these are just Midjourney artists, to use it as in a sophisticated way to create a body of work that is sort of conceptually consistent. I think that's hard. Like they say, any photographer can get lucky, and any person who's not a photographer can get lucky and take a good photo if he's at the right place at the right time. But a fine art photographer is someone who can reliably make good photos in sort of a consistent aesthetic. And I think these people and their 100 photo drops are a great example of that. Thanks for the question. Yeah.
Can AI art be copyrighted?
Yes, there's a whole legal panel on that here. Krish Kashanova, follow her on Twitter. She took a case very high up, and I think they determined that if it's output directly from one of the tools, Midjourney, without any altering, it's not copyrightable, but anything that you do to alter the image is I think that's the latest state of the law on that. I gotta go. All right, thank you so much.
All right, everyone, give Robert a warm round of applause.
I'll be around if you have any questions.